I have a camera for you guys that not many people have taken a look at. Look at this. This is the Pixii Max, a very expensive digital rangefinder, beautiful to look at. And I had an amazing place to test this camera out. I actually got to try it on the streets of New York City, one of the best places to shoot street photography. And you know what, I'm gonna spoil the ending here for you guys a little bit. I didn't like this camera. I really didn't enjoy the experience. And don't get me wrong, I love everything that this camera stands for. I just don't love the camera. I'm Chris Nichols, this is PetaPixel. Stick around and you'll find out why.
I'm sure there's a love between us somewhere, darling, though it's hard to see it now.
So Pixii did not send us this camera to review, nor did we buy one. They're very expensive, but luckily we have a loyal viewer, Brandon. Huge thanks goes to him for actually letting us borrow his Pixii Max here, the full frame version of this digital rangefinder to test out. And the first thing I'm going to talk about on this rangefinder is the actual memory storage. This has 128 gigs of internal storage. That's the version that we have here. You know, Brandon went for the higher capacity, and that's nice and everything, but there's no removable memory card, and that's a real problem for me. I really prefer to have some sort of removable memory storage, even if it's micro SD, I don't care, give me something. Now, if I was going to use an SD card with this camera, I mean, I can't, so I'm not going to, but if I was going to, it would be an OWC Atlas SD card. So I really like the color coding on these. It's easy to figure out. So if I want V60 speed, I just go for the blue Atlas Pro SD cards. They're fast, they're reliable, we've got good compatibility across every brand that we've tested. And if you need the ultimate in performance, then you can go to the purple Atlas Ultra SD cards. V90 speeds, fantastic for high-speed video and really demanding situations. And if you need CF Express Type B or A cards, they've got you covered as well. And then when you get home, use the OWC Innergize software. This lets you keep abreast of firmware updates, keep your cards updated. You can also completely sanitize them and make sure that they're working at peak performance, so you can monitor the health of your cards over time and know that you can rely on for your professional work. Definitely check out OWC cards and readers. Click on the link in the description below and you can get all the information you need. Okay guys, so here's what I really respect about this brand. It's the people behind it. So Pixii is a company out of France. They've actually been working on these digital rangefinders for many, many years now, and they're clearly very passionate about photography and about designing an interesting product. We've been saying this for a long time, and we need to see more digital rangefinders. And it's been a long time since the Epson RD1, and Leica effectively hold a monopoly on digital rangefinders here, especially prestigious ones that work well. And so I get why this is going to be expensive. This is a small venture. They're trying to make a go of it. You know, there's a lot of costs involved. These cameras are going to be pricey. And yeah, they're definitely more affordable than, say, like a Leica M11, although there's a lot of capable used Leica M cameras that would absolutely be a similar price to this. And Pixii do something else that's very commendable and very interesting. I mean, this is the Max. This is their full frame camera, but there's been many series of cameras before this, APS-C sensors and the like. And what Pixii has offered is once you buy the product, as time goes by, you can send the camera in and get it upgraded. So for example, you go from an APS-C sensor to a full frame sensor for, yeah, you got to pay for it, but I mean, it's really nice. You don't have to buy a whole new chassis or try to sell an old camera. You can still use the camera you love. And so that's really an awesome idea. The downside is whatever chassis you buy, you're stuck with that design aesthetic, and that's where I have a lot of complaints about this camera. So let's get into it. So there's no denying that this is a boutique camera by a boutique camera manufacturer. I mean, this is a digital rangefinder that takes M-mount rangefinder lenses, and I get that a company like this wants to have an interesting design. Typically what we see out of these boutique manufacturers is an emphasis towards something very sexy, very stylish, very minimalistic, streamlined and svelte, but that doesn't always make them very good handling cameras. Now physically they're beautiful. I mean, I like the metal work, I like the edges, the fit and finish is really, really nice here, and like many other rangefinder style bodies, it's essentially a metal brick. Not very comfortable to hold. This is certainly something you want to get some sort of thumb grip for, maybe accessory grip, but that goes for pretty much any Leica M series camera as well. My main issues come down to the lack of controls. I mean, it's a very simplistic design. On the top of the camera, we basically have a shutter button that I don't enjoy using. It's very hard to press it. You got to push quite firmly to get it to fire, and I feel like that moves the camera quite a bit. There's no option to screw in a cable release or a soft shutter release. Now, right beside the shutter button here, you've got your main control dial. This is for your shutter speed, although it's not marked in any way with shutter speeds, save for one marking where you have your aperture priority based auto setting. The camera will set the shutter speed for you. Otherwise, when you use this dial, you're going to see your shutter speed controls on the screen right next to it. This is your heads-up display. It's very important. It shows you photos remaining, battery life, what mode you're in, what your shutter speed is, what your ISO is, and as you change this around, you're gonna see that shutter speed change. This goes up to like 32,000th of a second because this is an electronic-only shutter system. There's no mechanical shutter inside. We'll talk about that in a bit. Now, you do also have a metering system here. Very simple, just shows you if you're off, overexposed, underexposed, or bang on, and this is really handy if you wanna set things with your shutter speed and shoot from the waist. The last thing you have on the top of the camera is a shoe, but it's not a hot shoe, it's a cold shoe. So you could mount something like an external viewfinder or something, although it doesn't line up exactly with the lens axis. You could use it to attach, I don't know, what other handle, thumb winder grip. I mean, that's about it. Unfortunately, it precludes the use of any sort of electronic flash, so you're not gonna be hooking this up to studio lights or anything like that. On the back of the camera, it's pretty sparse as well. So we've got a USB-C port so you can connect the camera to your computer to download your shots. You can also go through Wi-Fi network at home. Regardless, downloading files I find to be quite slow. Otherwise, we have our power button, which also doubles as our menu button. Now, to turn the camera on, you gotta hold it down for a while and it's not gonna be ready to shoot for a few seconds. So on the streets of New York City, this is a real detriment. If you're trying to shoot quickly, better just leave the camera on and let the battery go in sleep mode than try to turn that on at the time. And then otherwise, we do have a command dial at the back here, but this is strictly for going through the menus. And I really dislike the menu system here. So essentially, once the camera's on, I push that power button again and it'll bring up some sort of option, and then I can use the dial to cycle through. So ISO, exposure compensation, format that I'm shooting, modes, profiles, all this kind of stuff. And the dial just goes back and forth through these options, but it's quite slow. Now, I can use the screen on top, or I can actually see the menu through the rangefinder. That's handy, but it takes a lot of turns on this dial to get this menu to cycle through. It just takes a long time to get there. If I was shooting landscape or architecture or something, it's no big deal, but if I want to use this for street shooting or quick action, it's just way too slow. And I don't know why there aren't any customizable buttons or ways that I could modify what the dial does that would make this far more usable. Another issue here is the back of the screen. So I have a little indicator here for status, whether I'm linked through Wi-Fi, and if the battery indicator's charging or getting low. And my issue is the batteries. They're just not that good. This is using old Sony FW50 series batteries or W series batteries. They're easy enough to get. They just don't last very long in this camera. We were shooting the streets of New York for just a couple hours. I maybe took 100 photos and my battery was down to about 30%. Now, Brandon, the person who lent me this camera, he did warn me, Chris, this goes through batteries real fast. This is a known issue. So he sent me a bunch of spares and I'm sure glad that I had them. Okay, so let's talk about the lack of a mechanical shutter in this camera. I really do like having a mechanical shutter. You know, it avoids rolling shutter issues and dynamic range loss, but this camera just has an electronic shutter. It's nice it can go to such fast shutter speeds, so if you're shooting f1.4 on a bright sunny day, you don't need to necessarily worry about ND filters or too much light. However, I didn't find it to be particularly stable because of the shutter button, as I mentioned, so I still had to be really careful hand holding. And more importantly, electronic shutters are silent, so I'm completely dependent on the sound that the camera makes when a picture is shot. It gives you this little sort of clicking camera sound, but in an admittedly noisy city like New York City, I often couldn't hear it, so I didn't know if it actually took a picture or not. The frame lines do flash when you take a photo, that helps, but I didn't always notice that, and I ended up taking a lot of extra shots just to make sure that I got something I want to use. I also often would get a failure of the camera to fire in the first place. It would give me this weird buzzing noise and there would be a message saying write error or still writing a card, something like that. It was really annoying. So I ended up having to really slow down, take extra shots to help ensure that I got the photo. And it's just not a very confidence-inspiring experience. But at least the light on me looks really nice right now. So we got this really beautiful sunny day today and we have a crew member, my son Kai, is helping us out here. He's not gonna wave or anything because it'll mess up the position of the reflector, but we're using a very basic Westcott 30-inch round reflector. And the nice thing is, you got silver on one side, white on another. This is very useful for video work like this. He's providing nice reflection right on my face using the silver side to give more of that direct sunlight kind of look, but you also have the white side if you want a softer, more diffused look. Westcott make a whole series of round reflectors, different sizes. You can get nice 5-in-1s where you're gonna get silver, white, gold, and black, depending on whether you wanna maybe warm things up or take light away, as well as diffuser panel in the middle, which is really handy for shooting direct sunlight right onto a subject or maybe like macro work and stuff like that. You can even pop a flash through it. These are very versatile, they're very affordable. These 30 inches, you can fold them up really compact and take them with you anywhere. And so it's just a really handy piece of kit to have. You shouldn't leave home without it. And you know, bring your son along to help you out and shoot with you. Anyways, check out the Westcott 30-inch round reflectors. You can click the link in the description below and look for it yourself, or go to fjwestcott.com and look at their whole selection of really effective reflectors. We really like using their products. That's why they're PetaPixel's preferred lighting partner. But of course, the very thing that we're trying to emulate from the Leica M series rangefinders is that this also has a coupled mechanical rangefinder. Let's talk about that. So this does have a really nice wide field of view. You're actually gonna get like a 28mm equivalent for the whole frame lines, and you do get some really nice illuminated frame lines for the lenses you put on it. The catch is a little bit slow though. When I change lenses, I have to go in the menu, find my frame line selector, and then change the focal length. I have primarily used this Thypox Samara 75mm 1.4 lens for testing this camera, and there's a few reasons I wanted to do that. Number one, if I want to see any issues with the rangefinder, this is going to show it, because the depth of field is going to be so slim at f1.4, that rangefinder patch has to be accurate. The other thing too is it's just a nice lens. It's a sharp and nice lens, so I like that as well. Now this is admittedly quite a large lens physically. I don't think Pixii was really intending for you to use bigger, brighter lenses like this. I mean, this is more intended for 28s and 35s and 50s of smaller size, because this 75 is absolutely blocking a large part of the viewfinder, but I can still work around it. I mean, because the frame lines are quite small for 75mm, so it wasn't too bad. But what about the rangefinder patch itself? Well, it's quite accurate. Even using a 75mm at f1.4, as long as everything was lined up properly, it was in focus. So I did like that part. It couples with the lens nicely, and I didn't have any sort of miscalibration on the vertical patch. Everything lined up vertically as well, which is nice to see. The real issue with the rangefinder is it's very dull and it's very dark, especially in comparison to a Leica. And I know that's the gold standard, but there's lots of situations in New York City, you know, on a bright afternoon where I'm having a hard time getting focused. Like even just seeing where the rangefinder is pointing, what it's looking at, okay, then discerning detail and then trying to get it to line up. And so that does, again, make the process kind of slow. And if you are shooting quickly, that often led to misfocusing. That is a skill issue, but if the rangefinder was brighter, I'd have a better time of it. So I think we've established that I don't really like the minimal controls on this. I'm not a big fan of the menu system. I find the camera quite slow to use, and the rangefinder's not bright enough. So far, not a very positive review for sure. But what about the image quality? Well, let's talk about it. So in here, we've got a 24 megapixel backside illuminated CMOS sensor. We've seen a lot of sensors like this before. I think 24 megapixels is fine for this camera. And you know what? A lot of people that have tested this camera already dislike the color, but I actually really like the color straight out of the Pixii. It's got a really interesting vibe to it. There's a whole bunch of profiles that are loaded in the camera that you can use, but I actually use the standard for most of it. And you can even make your own profiles and upload them back to the camera. That's a cool feature to have as well. But I mostly just shot DNG. I mean, this only does JPEG or DNG. It doesn't do both. Don't ask me why. But I was just shooting DNGs, easy to open up, and I actually found the files very nice to work with just in post in Lightroom. I've got decent shadow detail, you know, made fairly good noise characteristics, very typical of a 24 megapixel full frame sensor, except when you have to push the exposure or you shoot at high ISO. You see, the main issue with the camera is if you shoot around 2500 ISO or higher, you get some serious banding in the shadows of the image, and it's very apparent. Of course, the higher the ISO you go, or the more that you push the photo in post, the more this banding becomes obvious, and it's just brutal looking. I mean, it's got a nice overall grain structure, but you'd have to really like turn the shadows to just solid black to get rid of that banding, and I haven't seen anything that bad since like old school DSLR days. Now there is an option on this camera to shoot in a monochromatic mode. This is a 16-bit black and white only DNG format. You can't recover to color, it's just black and white. And you know, they're making a big deal about this, and what I will say is if you use the mono mode specifically compared to the color conversion pushed, as you can see here, you will get less banding, but it's still there, you can still see it. And I didn't find much of a difference in sharpness or a grain pattern or anything like that. It looks very similar, it just has less banding. So if I was going to shoot high ISO on this camera, I guess I'd put it in mono mode. Otherwise, I would just stick to color and then convert it later, assuming that I'm shooting at more moderate ISO ranges. But this is kind of a disappointing result because I really like the overall tone and overall color of the photos. I just don't like shooting this camera at higher ISOs. You know, I really wanted to like this camera. I really think that we need to have alternatives to the Leica M series digital rangefinder. And You know what, honestly, I don't even mind that the camera's expensive. I get that. I mean, if it's gonna be a pricey camera, but it would give me similar capability to a Leica M series camera, that'd be awesome. That'd be an alternative, another choice. But the problem is that a lot of the design issues on this camera just seem to really hold it back, and I don't know why it's so minimalistic to its detriment. And I can be okay with minor downsides like poor battery life or having to change my frame lines every time I change lenses or having internal memory only, but the camera, I just don't want it to hold me back, and having to shy away from shooting at higher ISOs, having to deal with the incredibly slow and annoying menu system, and having to deal with the fact that the camera just doesn't operate quickly or is customizable when I really need it to be, really didn't make me enjoy this experience, unfortunately. So again, kudos to Pixii for actually making an attempt at an M series digital rangefinder. As far as I know, this is really the most serious attempt at it outside of the Leica world, but I really want to see some other manufacturers make capable digital rangefinders. I think there's a big market for it. I can see why the Pixii brand tried to do this, but for whatever reason, I just don't think they implemented it well. And I guess I'm just a little bit confused because I know Pixii have been at this for many, many years, and they've kind of stuck themselves into a camera design and format that, well, I mean, maybe you guys enjoy out there. I don't know. I just really don't. But if I was in a position where I was looking for a slightly more affordable M series digital rangefinder than a very expensive, absolutely, M11, I would look to use Leica before I would look at this. But anyways, let me know what you guys think below. I'd like to hear your comments on this camera. Maybe you've tried it, or maybe you're curious about it, and hopefully this video helps you out in making a decision. You know, if you want to help us out on this channel, what we'd really appreciate is you guys getting a PetaPixel.com membership, $3 a month, $30 a year, and you get all the benefits that you can see on the screen. It's a really, really cool way to help us do special projects, you know, to fund other kinds of stuff like beyond photography, visits to observatories and cool travel and trips that we'd love to bring you, and it helps support the entire team, not just Jordan and myself. And hey, while you're at it, why not watch the PetaPixel podcast? We'd appreciate the support there too. It's on this exact same channel, or you can listen to us on all your favorite podcasting apps, but you'll miss out on our cool offices and our neat t-shirts. All right, guys, we'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.